Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable. WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future.
Hello and welcome to this special series. WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future. This week on the show, we will focus on investment in India in crypto startups. To discuss this and more, I have a very special guest. Pranav Sharma is founding partner Woodstock Fund. Thank you, Pranav, for joining us on CNBC TV18. First of all, the cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and many others have been the face of blockchain-based technologies for some years now. Would you say that there is interest now in the underlying infrastructure, the focus among the individuals, companies, and investors alike?
Manisha, first of all, absolute pleasure to be here in this session. There are a lot of people who are choosing to be in this space because there is a lot of interesting innovation which is happening. And of course, with innovation and a new market emerging, there are interesting opportunities to make money. And just to make a comment on, Manisha, what you mentioned there was a point in time wherein this was almost like magic money and people were dabbling with certain cryptocurrencies. They're still dabbling, which is going on. But now a lot of these currencies on blockchain as a space or even digital assets as a whole has gained a lot of traction, a lot of institutional acceptance, a lot of regulatory acceptance. I think we're very close to a tipping point wherein this will become like any other matured asset class. And as more and more regulators embrace this is going to be a very interesting future that we'll be stepping into.
So, Pranav, what is your sense on the participation that we've seen in India when it comes to blockchain? Clearly, we've seen a lot of interest, excitement, enthusiasm when it comes to buying all of these cryptocurrencies in lieu of the return. But when it comes to technologies, where does the Indian participation stand?
Indians are definitely very excited about this, Manisha, because I think for various reasons. I mean, one thing is that India has such a young population, extremely excited about building stuff, making money, living a certain lifestyle. It's a combination of various things. But I think the second part is that India has been a very enterprising country from the very beginning. I mean, India has been known for creating Silk Route, whatever, you can have multiple paradigms. Speaking about why India became a very important, I would say, landmass in the entire commerce, globally. So my limited, point here is that Indians as a whole and India as a space, we are just, getting to a tipping point. Look at the number of developers, English-speaking developers, that we have, and this is always going to be an asset. And there is also a very interesting thing is in terms of the building a startup. There is a playbook which is out there. Which has, there are a lot of successful startups that have come out of Indian shore, Polygon, Marlin Protocol, Frontier, Bioeconomy, etc. You can take multiple examples there. And they have done a phenomenal job in terms of building some amazing startups. And of course, you have exchanges like WazirX. So I think this is just a start of a juggernaut wherein this is only going to grow. And there are a lot of numbers that speak about this. I mean, look at it in terms of the amount of crypto volume that you see on the exchanges. I mean, a lot of us may see that these crypto exchanges are dabbling with so much of volume, but in many ways, this volume is a representation of the appetite that Indians have in terms of participating into markets and asset class like this.
Pranav, you are a global investment fund, but when it comes to India, what kind of investments do you have here? What kind of a growth in investments have you seen and where on?
I think so. There is a part of India and Indianness which really keeps us rooted as a team. But as a fund, as you rightly mentioned, we are a global fund. So we are structured outside. Large part of our team is also outside the country. Our mandate is also global. But when it comes to India, our focus is to support Indian entrepreneurs and see that how we can be investing into them at the most earliest stage possible based upon our investment mandate and see that how we can nurture them and support them. And just to share with you, it's not a wishful thinking. It's something that we have been already doing by supporting many of the startups from Indian soil. Practically, it's a small community that we keep on interacting with on a daily basis. They keep on connecting us with some amazing startup as well. We keep on helping them with either access to the traditional side or advising them on what is it that can really help them to become much better equipped for the global play. So it's something that we will only continue to deepen going forward by having more focus in terms of investing into Indian startups in blockchain space and also helping to build ecosystem by supporting developers through hackathons, through meetups, through conversations like these, so that people who are an audience of this, for example, um, program, they also see that there are serious people here. They mean well, and there are a lot of people who are on the fence right now and seeing that whether the government is proactive, reactive, what's going to come around. I think the government eventually everything will come together, and this is all going to be a great possibility for both investors as well as builders in this technology.
That there are 340 startups in India. You could correct me on that. But I want to push you on what kind of investments do you have in India? What has been the growth there? When we look at this huge number, how much of a possibility of achievements do you see here?
So I think first thing is this market is pretty young right now, and let's put it this way. So a lot of these startups are pretty new right now, and of course you can take names of certain startups like let's say Polygon, or let's say Bioeconomy, or let's say for example Frontier, or let's say Uniland. I won't call them as Indian startups because technically they're structured outside the country, but as startups, they are very they have Indian roots. The founders are Indian, etc., and they have gained huge traction in terms of on-chain data. I mean, Polygon is out there. I mean, it's not an investee company. We are not ready at that particular point in time to invest into Polygon, but Polygon team at Polygon are good friends, and we have been investors into the other three which I mentioned to you, and they have been seeing tremendous amount of on-chain traction. All three of them whom I mentioned, they have paywalls. So in the sense that it's not even about how their token does, etc. Even their base technology is also getting them revenue, and they are making good progress in terms of growing both in bull market, bear market, etc. And of course, the token gives them the leverage in terms of creating network effects and scaling it further. So I just gave you three examples. I can share specific numbers there, but what I'm saying is that the on-chain metrics in terms of the number of transactions that they do, in terms of the number of users, which are growing, the number of unique wallets which are using them, there are clear metrics which are growing literally month on month.
How do you see the global growth when it comes to investment in these startups? How do you look at Asia with it, and then India specifically?
So Manisha, I think one thing is very clear, that the future is Asia. I mean, basically, I keep on telling people that the twins shall meet, and this is a great bridge. Whatever you call it decentralization, DeFi, blockchain, whatever you call it. So essentially, the West is amazing in terms of, let's say, of course, from a money point of view, let's say in terms of strength of their respective currencies. But I think what people miss out is they are amazing in terms of innovation and product management. And when it comes to India and Asia, we are great in terms of building things on scale, and sort of building good variants of it, and sort of taking it forward. So I think decentralization sort of creates that bridge. So many times when you also look at the teams, some of these teams have very interesting contours, wherein the developers would be largely Indians, the product guys would be based somewhere in West, either in US, Europe, or UK, of course. I mean, and you will see that the business development people are across the globe, wherever there are geographies which are building this stuff. So what I'm saying is that it's a very interesting mix, which is going to create a possibility for West to look at East a lot more. And you clearly see that a lot of the funds which are based out of US are looking at Asia very, very positively, and they are taken very big bets. They're leading many rounds, etc. So I think this is just beginning in a massive way. What's also happening is a bunch of the startups which have raised or in the process of raising, they're looking at Indian developers, Indian entrepreneurs, Indian co-founders, etc. Sort of coming together to see that how they can take it forward. And of course, folks like Polygon, they're building an ecosystem. They have been actively evangelizing, supporting the ecosystem through various conferences, hackathons, E3M conferences, etc. Over the past 4 or 5 years. So all of this hard work is all coming together, and this ecosystem is seeing tremendous growth in India as well. So I think, so in short, a lot of action in Asia. I think Asia is going to be very interesting. And of course, because India has English-speaking developer base, Indians are extremely enterprising, and India is going to be a shining light, in my opinion. And I think that's what everyone understands. So when people see that the regulation is not conducive, it's something which is not coming from the space wherein they want to be antagonistic, but I think it is largely coming from a space that they are hungry to do a lot more, and they feel that they can actually step up and sort of create a huge impact in India. So I think a lot of startups, when I speak with them, a lot of their resistance, a lot of their anguish is coming from a good space wherein they truly want to make a difference.
Well, that point is well taken. But with that, Pranav, we'll have to stop for a very short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the global learnings, also regulatory aspects in India after this short break.
WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future. WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future.
Welcome back, and Pranav Sharma has stayed back with us, and we are into the middle of a very enriching conversation here. Pranav, you've spoken about India and the excitement that the Indians have here with this new technology, but there are various technologies that the markets are looking at. There's DeFi's, DAOs, NFTs have made a launch in Indian markets as well, and then you have AI and machine learning, virtual technologies, etc. And there's that much investment into the markets there. Which pie do you see getting more investments going forward?
Countries like India and for Asian economies in general, lot of this, whichever way you look at it, a lot of this development will only happen on the shoulders of technology, both current technology and emerging technology. The difference between the emerging technology and the current technology is that emerging technology sort of gives you additional tools, additional space to build different kind of applications. So when you're talking about AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, etc., these are just a different bunch of technologies which are necessary to build futuristic applications. Now, for various of these technologies to come together, you require a very solid foundation. And that framework is what we see as public blockchains or DLT networks, decentralized ledger technology networks. And within them, there are different stacks. These stacks are, let's say, DeFi, which is a different way of aggregating or building, let's say, I would say financial engineering and building applications in a different way so that you can disintermediate, you can have borderless flow of transactions, capital, basically switching from one asset to another happens seamless and so on and so forth. Similarly, NFT is a very interesting paradigm which basically creates an intersection of affinity and identity. And if you look at DAOs is an interesting point that you made, Manisha. It's something that people are dabbling with. It's a very interesting experiment because as a world, we always go from control to laissez-faire. I think this is all about creating a world in which people can participate, they can have their voice, etc., and have better governance. But in my opinion, a combination of DAO and centralization is where the future would lie, because in certain areas you require some sort of decision making to be centralized, and in certain areas you require the voice of the people to be the one which is determining what decisions should be taken. So DAOs are great platforms, technology tools which are available for us to decentralize things in terms of governance, in terms of actions, in terms of decision making, which earlier were assumed to be centralized. So I think there's a whole bunch. There's a lot of stuff happening on the enterprise side. There's so much of stuff which is happening around regulated technologies. So there is a plethora of things which is happening in this space, and it's a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole is what I keep on saying to other people.
But let's bring in the regulatory aspect then, and there's a lot of gray area there. What is your sense on where we could be moving on from here? Technology is one part of it, blockchain is yet another, and then you have cryptocurrencies, which the government is not very keen on or comfortable on, and that clearly has been the view from various other global central banks also. What is your sense specifically with India?
From a government point of view, fundamentally there are two issues. One is systemic risk, and second is consumer protection. And I think the third area would be money laundering, which is also another area. So I think these three areas are real areas, and definitely all the three areas have real solutions. So the industry has matured to a point wherein there are a lot of solutions around this. And I must say that the government, in my opinion, I would say in my experience, because we've interacted with certain parts of government in the past, they are very open to blockchain as a technology, and they're observing and seeing that in what way can cryptocurrencies be regulated. Similarly, our financial market regulator is very open to tokenization as a play. They are very keen to see that how the building blocks can be put together so that the industry participation increases. Now, definitely, they will have their reservations, and it is up to the industry. And of course, it is I think the conversation both the sides have to happen so that the fundamental issues are addressed. Now, for a large country like India with a federal structure, it's not something which is going to be resolved in a single day. But my sense is the way India is, as we see more and more scalable models emerge, which are able to address these three issues. One is systemic risk, second is um, ensuring that consumer protection is taken care of and anti-money laundering is taken care of through FATF compliance, etc. The government will, over a span of time, become more conducive. I'm extremely bullish that the government, because the government has made the right noises in the past. Ministry of Finance has made the right points. Of course, the other parts of the sections of ministry have created frameworks for blockchain participation, etc., to go forward. I think I'm extremely bullish that eventually India will come together and see this as I would say a great possibility for job creation, for innovation, for us to do a quantum leap and become a developed country on the backbone of technology using amalgamation of various technology, which we just spoke about a while back. And I think a lot of this will come together over a span of time.
And then, Pranav, it's not just about one country, right? Because it's a global phenomenon. So do you think at some point in time we will see various governments, regulatory bodies actually collaborate, integrate, come together? Because this is going to be a global thing. So so that it's not stifled, but it's created, it's pushed, it's invested in. Do you see that coming in? And is India taking in from these global learnings?
Manisha, it is already happening. I mean, if you look at it this way, I mean, Indian regulators are looking at what MAS is doing in Singapore, what SEC is doing, what other, Asian countries are looking at, how they are, sort of, taking it forward. So I think all of this is happening. I think what has happened over a span of time is that we have converged in terms of identifying the specific issues. Earlier, it was about that Bitcoin is a problem. Then it was about blockchain is a problem. And, sort of, all of this is now that I think governance is a problem. We have to figure out a way that how we can create an environment in which there's enough supervision, there's enough oversight, and there are enough controls and checks and balances in place. So I think regulators have already started coming together. And I just want to make one point. Look at FATF guidelines, and FATF, they keep on issuing guidelines, and there is a collaboration which is happening across the world. In many ways, it sets up a tone for AML, anti-money laundering related strictures to be put into place by respective regulators. So when we look at, for example, regulations in Middle East, we look at regulations in India, we look at regulations in, let's say, Cayman, we look at even US for that matter, there is a certain hygiene which has been put into place by the regulators. And I think it has all happened by having a collaborative approach. So I think a lot of people may see regulations as an enemy in some ways, but my opinion is that the regulations create a very good framework for large scale adoption. So we are very close to a tipping point wherein this collaboration will only increase as one country accepts this as a legal tender, other country sort of creates a very proactive framework, and a third country opens a sandbox, and successful startups emerge, and the innovation is done in a very compliant way. I think this space will only see a lot more collaborative and proactive regulation coming through.
So as Woodstock Fund, what is your sense on where is the industry headed? How is it growing? What are your investment plans going forward? And then, there's one thing that keeps being spoken about, and that is that this industry is going to be $1 trillion industry. How soon do you see that happen?
I think $1 trillion is something which has already happened. I mean, I would say that maybe the question is, when will $1 trillion industry happen in India? I mean, so I'm just thinking loud about it. I mean, look at even the IPO that happened with Coinbase, that created a certain depth in the market, equity markets, a lot of equity transactions are happening. So in short, from Woodstock perspective, as a global fund, we are expanding our reach. So we are, right now focused on raising for Woodstock Capital Fund 2, which has both a US tranche as well as a non-US tranche. We have got commitments from family offices, institutional investors are doing active due diligence, etc. They're trying to come in, and there's a large number of investors of the Fund 1 who are also participating into Fund 2 as well. Similarly, we are deepening our reach in US. We are deepening our reach in Asia as well. Similarly, we'll also be looking at setting up acceleration facility to see that how startups from India, startups from Middle East, they can all benefit and the region can benefit overall. So I think all of this is on the cards, and we're extremely excited about the journey. All I can say is that we are coming from a position of a lot of sincerity, a lot of seriousness, the huge possibility. My sense is the next 5 years are going to be explosive for this space. Even look at the current market, even if, let's say, somebody may say that Bitcoin from $60,000 abouts has become $30,000, but it came from a bottom of $3,500 to $30,000, which is like a clear, let's say, about 10x. But that is not the point. The point is that the market has found a certain stability at a certain level, and the number of talented people who are getting involved into this, practically we get like 5 to 10 smart teams coming to us. Increasingly, it has become very difficult to sift out good projects from things that we don't want to. There's a lot of pressure even on the investors like us to have a very refined thesis, a very keen eye to support best of the startups and choose a great startup from a good startup, and sort of also miss out on great startups at times. So it's a great journey, and we are extremely excited about it.
Pranav, as we speak about all of this, we've been interacting with a lot of people, and then there are nerds, and there are investors, and then there are people who want to be in that space. How quick have you seen, people build skill being built into this scenario or sector?
So Manisha, look at it as two kind of skills. One skill is a building skill. I think the building skill is something that people have been able to build it in like 2-3 months, right? In terms of learning a new language and sort of, there's a Solidity or some other language and sort of, taking it forward. But I think the business acumen is what differentiates a good entrepreneur from a bad entrepreneur. Solving the right problem at the right time is what differentiates a good entrepreneur from a great entrepreneur, right? Now, this is one skill which is necessary from a startup point of view. From an investment point of view, all I can say is that besides identifying great opportunities and getting a right exit, what is extremely important is to be ahead of the curve in terms of compliance and regulations. For example, let's say in 2019 itself, when we started the fund, we made fewer investments, but our focus was to be FATF compliant, GDPR compliant. We took that pain upon ourselves. A lot of people within the team are also like, Pranav, why are you putting this much of pressure on us? But all of this is paying us richly, as we are fully FATF compliant. We have an independent risk committee, we have an investment committee, we have got proper governance. So the point I'm making is that there's a lot of stuff that goes even in terms of becoming a good investor, besides identifying great opportunities. And I would say our next frontier is to be ESG compliant as well. So FATF compliant, GDPR compliant, ESG compliant. I clearly see that ESG is the future, and we can't be in a vacuum looking only at economics or technology alone. It's going to be a combination of economics, technology, the social shift that is happening, and ecology.
All right, Pranav, there's so much to talk, but that's all the time that we have on the show. Thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC TV18.
WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.